بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا. بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما. قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome everyone to the Imam Hussein Islamic Center, and it is indeed a privilege and an honor and a pleasure to have everybody here this evening joining us in the hall, and of course all of you who are joining in online tonight or at some other point in time, inshallah. We're very fortunate that we're now hosting programs back in the center, and as I mentioned, I think a couple of nights ago, it's terrific to see everybody here, and last week as well. Please, your support is very, very greatly appreciated and is an essential part of keeping the center running. So whether you're watching online or whether you're able to make it in person, please do your best to be part of these programs. And inshallah, all of these programs benefit you and I and everyone else. And without you, really, we can't run these programs. We can't host these programs and have them available for everybody. So inshallah, you'll stay with us and be a part of these programs. There are some very big events coming up in the next 1 or 2 months. So please keep tuned in on WhatsApp, Facebook, website, Instagram, email, phone call, funnily enough. We take phone calls too. And if you really must, a text message will also do the job. But thank you very much, and inshallah we'll begin tonight's program. One of the greatest ladies to have ever existed on this earth is Sayeda Zainab. Of course, Sayeda Fatima, but in this case, we're speaking about Sayeda Zainab. Salamullah alayhi. Of course, Sayeda Zainab is the holy daughter of Imam Ali alayhi salam and Sayeda Fatima salamullah alayhi. And with that comes not only a status and a responsibility, but also, inshallah, a capability as well. And tonight, with all of you and with our dear friend and esteemed scholar, Sheikh Mohammed Mehdi, inshallah, we're going to explore that subject. Sheikhna, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you, Hajj?
Alhamdulillah, thank you very much, Sheikh. It's great to have you back up here again.
Likewise.
I think it's been a few weeks since we...
table talk.
Yep. It's, alhamdulillah, the response has been great for your presentations and for your insights when we're having these discussions. So I'm very grateful to have you. Thank you, Sheikh. Sheikh, let's get into it with a little bit of history, if you will, about Sayeda Zainab. Of course, this week was the anniversary of her wafat. So if you wouldn't mind, could you give us a little bit of background on Sayeda Zainab and why we commemorate Sayeda Zainab or celebrate Sayeda Zainab, depending on the occasion, of course, in the manner that we do?
Firstly, I'll begin with a story.
Please.
Based on what you said. A friend of mine was traveling to Sham, and this was many years ago. We're talking about almost 20 years ago. And he got in with the cab driver, and he said to the cab driver, "Can you take me to the shrine of Sitt Ruqayya, Lady Ruqayya?"
Yeah.
So on the way, he said to the cab driver, he said, "Do you know who Lady Ruqayya is?" And the cab driver, obviously from the other sect, said, "She's the daughter of Sayyidina Ali, or Sayyidina al-Hasan, or Sayyidina al-Hussein."
Yeah.
So he said to him, "Yes, she's the daughter of Sayyidina al-Hussein." He said, "How old was she?" He asked the cab driver.
Yeah.
Cab driver said 60, 70 years old. And he said, "No, you're not right." Then he said, "How old was she?" He said, "Well, she was 3 or 4 years old when she was martyred." So the cab driver looked back and said, "A 3-year-old, and you've built this magnificent shrine for a 3-year-old?" So my friend said to him, "If we found a sandal for Imam Hussein, we would build a shrine for it." So anything linked to Imam Hussein carries a great weight. Why? Because if you recall a few weeks ago, I mentioned Sha'airullah. And I said the camel that we take to the Hajj, this budna that we take to slaughter, Allah says in the Qur'an that this budna min sha'airillah is of the sha'air, we said something gives you a sense of God. This camel is a sign of God. You know, I used to mention people when people used to laugh at the concept of the Dhul Janah. You know, when this, I told them this is a sha'air of sha'airullah. This is what gives people this feeling. So this camel, when it's taken, is of sha'airullah. Allah says it's in the Qur'an. This is not a hadith for someone to say weak, strong, whatever. So this is where we've got. So anything that leads or links to God carries this great weight and great value. Howbeit, when we talk about the status of a woman like Zainab alayhi salam, when one of the companions went to the Kaaba and he said, "Oh Allah," he said, "Please do not forget Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi." He said, because if had it not been for him, this house would not be worshipped. No one would come and worship you. Then when he went to Medina, he visited the shrine of Rasulullah and said, "Ya Rasulullah, do not forget Amir al-Mu'mineen. For if it wasn't for him, no one would have come to your shrine and visited you. For him to keep your name alive, because Amir al-Mu'mineen's stance on that day is what kept the name of Rasulullah alive on the day where they attacked his house." Then when he went to Najaf, he said to Amir al-Mu'mineen, "Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, oh Ali, do not forget Imam Hussein. If it wasn't for the sacrifice he made in Karbala, Islam would never have remained." So when he went to Karbala, he said, "Oh Abu Abdullah, do not forget Zainab." Because if it wasn't for Zainab, this whole calamity and tragedy would never have spread.
Would have been lost.
Would have been lost. If Sayeda Zainab alayhi salam had not been vocal when all tongues had become silent, all this tragedy, all this remembrance wouldn't exist. Nothing would exist. Who would have known? Just like you look at the day when, for example, if you ask people right now, how did the Prophet die? This is a big question. People don't know. If you ask people, how did Fatima Zahra alayhi salam die? People don't know. Talking about the Muslims in general. Why? Because history buried everything. If you look at tragedy after tragedy, history buried things. But with the story of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when Zainab was vocal, she unraveled a corpse. A hidden corpse, that all this, that everyone thought that the religion was so good, the religion was, everyone was friends. You know, like I remember one story where Ziyad ibn Abi, just to give you an idea, Ziyad ibn Abi was an illegitimate child. That's why they called him Ziyad, the son of his father. Because his father was unknown, you know. He was a pro-numeral. No one knew what he was. So anyway, so Ziyad ibn Abi was put in his place by Hajar bin Uday, who was a companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the companion of Rasulullah, the companion of Imam Hassan. So then Muawiyah said, "How could you be so insolent to my governor? I'm going to kill you." And so he killed him. So then Aisha sent a letter to Muawiyah and said, "You killed him because he was insolent to your governor." Because she didn't like Ziyad ibn Abi, that's why. So Muawiyah said, "Listen, O mother," he said, "this is a problem between me and Hajar that God will sort on the Day of Judgment. It's not a big issue." He killed him, but it's not a big issue. So what we're saying is, this is how these people, they would kill as if it was nothing. And it would be buried in history, no one would say anything. Sayeda Zainab alayhi salam was that voice. She was that stance. She was the one that would stand when people refused to stand, when people refused to speak. And her life from beginning, you got to remember, she was, sorry, I've gone a bit over time, but I want to say, her life from the very beginning, remember, she was raised, she's the daughter of Ali, the daughter of Fatima. And the granddaughter of Rasulullah. She was raised in the house. Imagine which house? في بيوت, in the houses, أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه. in the houses where Allah Azza wa Jal had selected and permitted and chosen for the dhikr to come down.
Yep.
You know, when we read Ziyarat Jama'ah, we say مختلف الملائكة, where the angels would congregate. In this house, Zainab was raised in that house. Around these people. Some people might say, hold on, why isn't there much spoken about Zainab alayhi salam to Karbala? This probably, most probably, our fuqaha say, our ulama say, was to keep her position secret.
Keep a low profile.
Yeah, low profile, because otherwise she would have been killed.
Yeah.
And then, this is your X factor, and to take her task. So over these years, that's why if you notice, there's the inactivity of us not really knowing her role. Even though she's the one that narrated the Khutbah al-Fadakiyya for Imam Fatima al-Zahra, she narrated it.
Yeah.
She was there, how old was she? 3, 4 years old?
I was going to ask you, how old was she when...
She was a child.
Yeah.
And she narrated that khutbah. That we, up till today, our ulama, they understand religion from A to Z from this sermon. So Zainab alayhi salam played a pivotal role there. And she took the role of Imam Hussein and Abu Fadl Abbas in their absence. When they were martyred, she's the one that carried the family. Yeah. She's the one that comforted the women. She's the one that comforted the children. She's the one that gave that leadership, because Allah Azza wa Jal had placed Imam Ali ibn Hussein in a place to be sick and unable to play that role.
Yeah.
Because Allah had to do this in order to preserve his life.
Sayeda Zainab had a title,
al-Masa'ib.
Yeah.
Which is the mother, she is the mother of catastrophes or calamities or tragedies.
For having narrated...
because she lived through everything.
Yeah.
There's not a tragedy that she didn't live through. Like, she was there for everything. She witnessed, imagine she was by the side of all of Ahlul Qisa.
Yeah.
All 5 of them. Yeah. Imagine the greatest of God's creation.
Yeah.
And you cannot compare, all humanity cannot be compared to these 5. She witnessed all of them die.
Wow.
Yeah. And what made her survive? Allah Azza wa Jalla assisted her.
His will. Sheikh, there was another title of Sayeda Zainab as well. And maybe I'm getting it. No, the something along the lines of, and forgive me if I'm getting it mixed up. The scholar who was not scholarly taught. Something
this
along those
wasn't
lines?
actually a title. It was what Imam Ali ibn Hussein said to her.
There we go. Okay.
See, when we talk about knowledge, okay, and having the ability and understanding, we have knowledge that's acquired. You go to school, you learn. You go to seminary, you learn. Then you have a point where God shows you in Surah Al-Kahf, where Musa alayhi salam, Allah Azza wa Jal says, "Arsalna ilayhi abdan min ibadina." He says, afwan, it's not arsalna, I'm not sure. But he says, we sent to him, abdan min ibadina, ataynahu. He says, we gave this servant of ours, this is about Khidr, and then Allah says, وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِن لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. And we call this ilm ladunni, which is ilm that is God-given.
Right.
So Imam Zain al-Abidin says to her, oh auntie, you are a alima, you are a scholar that has not been taught.
Yeah.
In other words, that's what we say about Rasulullah. We say, allamahu shadidul quwa. Allah taught him.
Yeah. That he
you know, when someone sits here, and this is a very important point, because a lot of people, when we say the Prophet, they say he's illiterate.
Yep.
That he could not read or write. We say, no, this is not what it means.
He was unlettered.
He was not unlettered, he was not taught.
Yeah.
Why he wasn't taught? Because God had taught him. When did he teach him?
Yeah.
People ask, when did he teach him? God taught him before he created mankind. Allah says, Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran, Khalaq al-Insan. So Allah taught the Quran to the Prophet, then he created mankind.
Right. Right.
So this is what's ilm ladunni. Allah basically, if you want to get an idea of how it is, it's once, I remember when I was a child and they were teaching us, and they were talking about the USBs.
Yeah.
You know, how you transfer information. Because there was a hadith that I didn't understand. We were young, and Imam al-Rada alayhi salam was on his deathbed.
Yeah.
Imam al-Jawad walked in,
Yeah.
And Abu Salt al-Harawi said, I saw him whispering into his ear.
Right.
And he said, I didn't understand what he was saying. So he was telling us this is this transfer of all the information, the imamah.
Yeah.
It was being given to him.
Yeah.
Like that, it's instantaneous.
Yeah.
It's from God. I woke up and I understood. This is how it is. So Zainab alayhi salam had this. Why? You look at these sermons. Even the enemies were said it was as if Ali was standing before us. How eloquent she was.
Yeah.
This isn't something that's because this isn't something that you can just acquire.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. You made a few good points there, Sheikh. All of them were very good points, but the couple that I'd really like to mention is that the fact of the household in which she grew up, with the people that she grew up in, what phenomenal training for the mission that will come later in life for her.
That's right.
It's really amazing. Sheikh, just a brief diversion, a couple of quick announcements. There is a car outside with the lights on. The number plate is YDF82S. If that's your car, please, your lights are on. Please go and check. And to my wonderful 3 young, beautiful brothers who are sitting there and looking at the back, I don't want to call out their names, but would you mind just keeping your voices down, please? It's disturbing everybody else, and it's making it a little bit difficult for us over here. So if you don't mind, please, yeah? Thank you very much. I'm really happy you're here, but we need a little bit of quiet from you tonight, please. And, okay, that's the little diversion, so please excuse me. Sheikh, the real meat of what I want to talk about tonight, or what I'd like for us to discuss tonight, and before I jump into that, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please feel free to share them. We have our brothers over here who have who can bring you a mic, who you can make a comment and whatnot. So if you don't mind, I think the wireless mic is in there, and I think we have a brother who'd like to make a comment there as well, please. So, Sheikh, the real meat of tonight's focus is that quite often when we hear about Sayeda Zainab, we hear about the tragedies that she faced, how she perhaps was. Sorry, I seem to be dropped. Is that all right? Yeah? Okay. The tragedies that she faced, she's sometimes perceived or portrayed as the victim of everything that she was surrounded by. The poetry says, poor Zainab had to endure this. Not to take anything away from the tragedies that she faced, but poor Zainab this, and then Zainab endured that, and she had to do this, and so on and so on. But I think one of the greatest points that we're missing is the strength of this holy personality, that it wasn't that she just had to endure. Right, as Sheikh mentioned, right from the start, her training ground was to be prepared for all of this. And that she was a force unto herself. And again, please forgive me for this expression, she wasn't a victim of what was going on around her. That has so many things, and that's one of the reasons that we have the topic that we've been looking at for the last couple of nights and tonight as well, Zainab as the daughter of Fatima, salamullahi alayhi. That she is, like you mentioned, the daughter of Fatima and Ali, and with that comes a lot of things, Sheikh.
There's a big problem here with people sometimes when they look at Karbala in general, they look at the heroes of Karbala as unsuspecting victims or victims of a circumstance that they're in, rather than these people as being those that were entrusted with a divine task. Now, we're not here trying to subtract the human element. Yes, they broke them. Of course they broke. They were human beings. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he says to Al-Qasim, يَعِزُّ عَلَىٰ عَمِّكَ, that it's too difficult to bear that you call your uncle and he doesn't value. Yeah. This is the Imam's heart speaking. He's broken from this.
Yeah.
Or when his son Ali al-Akbar is martyred, he says, بُنَيَّ عَلِي عَلَى الدُّنْيَا مِنْ بَعْدِكَ الْعَفَى. This world is meaningless. It has no value after you've died. He's broken. Or when Abu al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam is martyred, he says, Al-an inqasara dhahri. My back's now broken. Of course, they're human beings. They cannot bear this. But this shows their resilience. This shows their resolve. This shows that when Allah chooses people for a task, they are the best. You know, because people will sometimes say, why wasn't I the one selected? Why am I not ma'soom? You say, okay, you can be ma'soom. The smallest thing we break. You go outside, you bought a brand new car. I'll go even easier. Your car has just been washed. A bird comes and finishes his dinner on your car. You know, the exit wound. It's on your car. You come in, oh my God, I just washed the car. It's the end of the world. You know? Or your kids are eating in the car. You know? You just want to, you think to a second, should we go back to, you know, the times of when kids were working in those Dickensian workhouses. You know? You start thinking things like this. And these are the most what? Simplest of things.
Yeah, the most superficial.
Do you think if any of us were afflicted? This is what you're going under. You're talking about super people. These were people that Allah selected for this task. See, one of the biggest problems, Hajj Ali, is, for example, and this comes from the Wahhabi mentality, where when you say Wahi, they say Prophet. You say revelation, they say Prophet. No one gets revelation except a Prophet. Why? Because that's the Wahhabi mentality. And a lot of other sects of Islam, they follow this because they listen to these people. It says he revealed to the angels. They say, yeah, well, the angels are the messengers of the prophets. Okay. Allah in the Qur'an says he revealed to the disciples of Isa ibn Maryam. Allah in the Qur'an, he says he revealed to the mother of Musa. When he says we revealed, Awhayna ila ummi Musa, that you will return, you will feed him, put him in the river. All this was revealed to her by Allah. It goes even further than that. Allah reveals to what? He says to the bees. He says, take houses in the mountains and in the trees, and even in edifices, established buildings. Allah says this in the Qur'an. He does wahi to, firstly, to, we said, disciples, angels, celestial beings. Then we said insects. It doesn't stop there. إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها يومئذ تحدث أخبارها بأن ربك أوحى لها. Allah revealed, gave revelation to the earth. The earth, we're talking about something inanimate. Something we call jamad. Then you come and say, hold on. So Allah reveals to other prophets. Yes. So can we say that Allah chooses other than the prophets? You know, they say, Inna Allah astafa Adam wa Nuh. Allah chose Adam, He chose Nuh, He chose the family of Ibrahim, and the family of Imran. You say, yes. Only prophets? No. What about Maryam? Allah says, Stafaki. Allah chose Maryam for her task. And thus we know for certain Zainab alayha salam was chosen for this. She was handpicked for this. It's not just anyone that was going to lead this task. She wasn't an unsuspecting victim. Yes, she had a message to carry. Yes, she had a burden. And yes, she carried it like the way she was meant to. But yes, she was broken from it. As Fatima alayha salam says what? Subbat alayya masaib. The calamities that fell upon me. He says, had they been poured upon the days, they would have become nights. So people cannot, that's why when we sit there and we read the Majlis of Ahl al-Bayt, we don't know what, honestly, we have patches, we don't have. What took place in detail is beyond anyone. Sometimes our reciters, they won't read everything. You're not meant to recite everything.
It's very hard to digest.
It's very hard. Just to even think about it. There was one where they talk about Al-Mirza Shirazi, who was he was the marja after Sheikh Al-Ansari in the 19th century. Just before Sheikh Al-Akhund. They say that when they were reading the Majlis of Sayeda Zainab in front of him, and they said that Zainab alayhi salam was brought into the court of Ibn Marjan ibn Ziyad.
Yeah.
And he started to weep, and he wept, and he wept, and he wept, and he said, just let us consider this. And he kept crying.
Yeah.
Now, and I want you to think of this. I want you to actually think of this. Could you imagine just a righteous woman right now is taken, right now, if you were to hear of a righteous woman, a mu'minah, taken into any place, like you could say just into a public place, like a shopping centre. And then they take her to the shopping centre and they've removed her veil. And they humiliate her before everyone in a shopping centre. Then you look at the status of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
When Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, نَحْنُ أَهْلُ بَيْتٍ نُبُوَّةٍ, we are the family of prophethood. When he talks, and when he says, وَيَزِيد شَارِبُ الْخَمْرِ, Yazid is an alcoholic. He drinks intoxicating drinks. He kills innocent people. He plays and cohabits apes and dogs. And he says, مِثْلِ لَا يُبَايَعْ مِثْلَ, someone like me does not give allegiance. Imagine how it turns on its head when, yes, the woman from this house, a house that has never been and never has since, a woman from Ahl al-Bayt being taken in this manner.
Yeah.
And that is enough for no one to even be able to handle. Imam Ali ibn Hussein alayhi salam was unable to bear even when the enemy put her on the camel.
On the camel, yeah.
And then when she started, when the camels came past the body of Imam Hussein, and she started calling bi abi and bi abi. It's a famous narration where she starts speaking to Imam Hussein's body.
Yeah.
And she keeps speaking. She's about to fall off the camel because she's been overwhelmed. And Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein says, Amma, he says, please stop. He says, because if you fall off the camel, I cannot bear to see them lift you again. To see a foreign man lay his hands on you. I can't bear this anymore. It's too much for me to even handle. So you need to absorb this. This breaks people. Yet Zainab alayhi salam spoke, and she was firm, and her arguments were conclusive, and she destroyed not only one tyrant in Ibn Marjan, Ubaydullah bin Ziyad, but the bigger tyrant that was waiting for her in Sham, in Yazid ibn Muawiyah.
In a very similar manner to which her mother went with her supporters, with her few supporters, to the masjid to confront those people
ones that
as well.
usurped the caliphate. Yeah, that's right. So you're looking at this role that these people are chosen for this role.
Yeah.
For people to think, well, there are people that think that Karbala just happened.
It was a long time in the making.
It was in the grand scheme of things. There is a system, because the world is not. Don't forget, the world is completely free. Because if that was the case, then the way we're heading right now with inflation, everyone's going to die of poverty. There's a God factor. God comes in when the time's right. You'll see how everything just flips, and you go, "How'd that happen?"
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I'll remind you. For those that forget, I'll remind you. If you go back, let's go. You go back. I will go far, and I'll come up. World War II. I've mentioned this before. Germany was on the verge of winning the war. From 1939 to 1941, Germany had smashed everybody. They had taken over France in 6 weeks. All of Europe was silenced. No one even opened their mouth. The Americans were reluctant to even enter. Okay? And then Hitler entered Russia, and he was smashing Russia. And then winter came early. Way early. Not early by 6, 7 days, 1 week. By 6 weeks, it came early. That's like something out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
That's an act of God. The German soldiers were ill-equipped, and that's when the war turned on its head. That's when America entered, because the Russians stood. The Americans said, all right, we'll just jump in and
finish this off,
even though it was the Russians doing all the work. Then you take a look at war after war, same thing. Take a look at more recently, of those that remember the war in Lebanon, the July War. Israel was smashing Lebanon. People that don't remember this, I'll remind you. They were smashing Lebanon so badly. I'm going to tell you, there were soldiers of the resistance that ran to Syria. Only a few stayed. What do you think everyone stood and fought? A lot ran. A lot ran. They were scared because how are you going to fight? Imagine you're standing there and you just see houses vaporize in front of you. You can't see these jets that are flying over. Yeah. You see a house just explode and you can't do absolutely nothing. What are you going to do? Point your AK-47 into the sky? What are you going to do? And everything just flipped. Everything just turned and the war turned on its head. And every time something happens, you see Allah changes something. And this is what people forget. People forget the factor, the divine factor and everything, that God reverses things and He changes the plight of every situation. Otherwise, what would happen? Hope would be lost. So, do we know what? Free will isn't complete. It's Amr ben Amrain. Allah intervenes. So life, there is a scheme to life. You have free will on how to deal with life.
Sheikh, we're getting in, this is dangerous territory here. There's a whole other discussion.
No, but what I'm trying to say here, with Sayeda Zainab, it was written,
yes,
Khutta al-Maut, but Imam Hussein could have changed his mind and not went.
Of course.
This is what people don't realize.
Yeah.
It was there. That's what I'm saying. Sayeda Zainab could have said, okay, I don't want this to undertake this task. But these were people that embraced these tasks, that they were ready for these tasks. There weren't people that would ever turn anything down. When we talk about Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam not drinking, for example, water, a lot of people might think it was a moment he wept over Imam Hussein returned. No, Abu Fadl Abbas had foresight. If he was to stay in the river all day, he still wouldn't have drank.
Yeah.
Why? Because they knew what they were there for. They knew their task at hand. Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam knew her task at hand. She knew her position. There were several things where she showed, for example, where she was concerned about praying Salat al-Layl. And even in this calamity where people don't eat, drink, whatever, she still was says, I need to pray my Salat al-Layl.
Yeah.
And even when one of the narrations, when the children have been taken as prisoner and people are giving them charity, and Sayyidah Zainab takes the food from their mouths with her finger. She says, you are the children of Rasulullah. You can't eat sadaqah. Yeah. You even have this hadith in Sahih Bukhari where someone comes to give food to Imam Hassan. You see it. Yeah. And they said, do not give him sadaqah, charity. He is the son of Rasulullah. That's why when when you're doing your zakat al-fitra, we have for Sayyid and non-Sayyid. Why is this? Why do you think even to now, 37, 38 generations after Rasulullah, it's to remind people of the status of these people.
Yeah.
That this is how long, forever. Is there 100 generations, 200 generations? It's perpetual because this is the bloodline of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And that's what we're talking about right here. So Sayyidah Zainab alayha salam, even there she enforced this law. She was always with that foresight. She always had that basira. And that's why she was chosen for a task, carefully selected by Allah, just as Allah had carefully chosen Adam and Nuh and Ibrahim and Musa and Isa and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajir farih. And in a similar way, Sheikh, that her parents were specifically selected, that her siblings were specifically selected. They had their mission and their task and whatnot, and throughout their lives they built up to that moment.
Well, all of it was built up for Islam. If you look at all the prophets and the system, God brought each prophet in a system where it built up to the final message, and then Waliyullah al-A'zam and Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. It's all up to the final part of the puzzle is the kingdom of justice on earth. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you want to use the land where the earth is the earth in its entirety, the universe in its entirety will be encompassed in justice. Yeah. And that's what it's all about. And that build up towards it. So everyone was there for that specific role. Yeah. Even if you take a look, a lot of people will say, was there any prophets between Isa and Muhammad? There's no prophets between Isa and Muhammad. Isa alayhi salam was the last prophet, and then 400-500 years later, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. All right, what happened during that time? There were awsiya. There's always someone that Allah had chosen. Before Rasulullah, we have narrations it was Abu Talib.
I see.
One of them they say even was Salman. Before Abu, they even say Abdullah in some narrations. Some say Abdul Muttalib as well.
Right.
Hashim as well. So this whole link, these weren't just, it wasn't just something an abath. This
wasn't haphazard or
it
random.
wasn't like honestly, if you look at the other version of events, where Rasulullah, and inshallah we'll talk about Mab'ath, so when he came back from the mountain, had no idea, they said, what happened? He said, look, I'm either crazy or I'm a prophet, one of the two. He had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
He had no idea, how is he going to be a prophet? He has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
So these were selected, they know who they were.
Yeah.
نحن أهل بيت النبوة, they know who they are. They know when they send, and another proof of these people's carefully selected is when Ali al-Akbar is sent out. Imam Hussein says, Inna Allah astafa Adam wa Nuh. He mentions the verse that these people were selected.
Yeah. Yeah.
ذُرِّيَّةٌ بَعْضُهَا مِنْ بَعْضٍ.
Yeah.
So Ali al-Akbar is also selected for the position he has and their task by Allah Azza wa Jal.
Ahsan, Sheikh. Sheikh, I think there's a brother who'd like to make a comment. Just make sure it's switched on. Yep, that should be on. There you go.
Assalamu alaikum. Ahsantum, Sheikhna.
Sallallahu.
Two quick questions as regards to I saw nothing but beauty. Can you expand on that with your interpretation? Is it just the reference to the batin rather than the zahir? And number two, the place of burial. Egypt, Damascus. Is it surprising that the latter imams weren't asked where Sayeda Zainab were buried? Do you have any narrations about any pointers towards the place of burial? And my understanding is it's likely to be Egypt, in which case, which person is buried in Damascus? Do we have any ideas if it's not Sayeda Zainab, who it may be?
Okay, firstly, with Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. See, the question that Ibn Ziyad asks Sayeda Zainab, he says to her, what did you see bi sun'illah, what Allah has done to you? Now, the question he's asking about what Allah has done, his intention is in the killing of your family. She answers his question by its real answer and ignores what he's actually saying. Because she doesn't say this is beautiful as in the killing. A lot of people interpret that and that's wrong. No, this is macabre. This was disastrous. She says, what Allah has done for me, I only saw beauty from what Allah has done with me. In every factor of my life. Allah has always done good for me. Allah never is the one that causes these kind of things. It's not like Allah inspires the enemy to go slaughter them. And this is what Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad is saying. And he even says it to Ali ibn al-Hussein, where he says, who are you? And he says, Ana Ali ibn al-Hussein. He said, did God not kill Ali ibn al-Hussein? See the wording? And Ali ibn Hussein says, I had a brother called Ali, and the people killed him. He says to him, no. He said, God killed him. And then Imam Zain al-Abidin says, Allah yatawaffal anfus, Allah takes the souls. And he says to him, you're being insolent, kill this man. And this is where Sayeda Zainab jumps in the way and protects him. But if you notice the wording that Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad's using and the response of Ali al-Akbar, Ali ibn al-Hussein, salamullah alayh. So the first one, she did not see beauty other than beauty from Allah. Everything, Ya man adhar al-jameel. In everything with us even. Adhar al-jameel in what? In what we do. وَكَمْ مِنْ ثَنَاءٍ جَمِيلٍ لَسْتُ أَهْلًا لَهُ نَشَرْتٍ. How many good things about me that I don't deserve. I know how petty I am, and then God makes me look awesome in front of people. You know what I mean? I know I'm petty and God makes me look awesome in front of people. And I go, oh my God, this person has such a good opinion of me. I'm not even worth this. So she says, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I only saw beauty from God. All the good things come from God.
Sheikh, I think that's a really key point there, from God, right? Or from Allah. That's a really key point there.
خَيْرُكَ إِلَيْنَا نَازِلٌ. Only good comes from Allah. And that's why when someone's upset with you, you say, how are you? Khair min Allah. I'm good from God. So, the second part of the question that you asked was the burial place. I remember when I was young, you know, when we were kids, we asked them, like
Yeah.
probably in our teens and that, we asked about this, and someone told me a story. I never verified this story, but he said there was a alim that was actually researching it, and he saw Sayeda Zainab in his dream, and she told him, this is what we were told, you know, that she told him don't research anymore because they're both visiting my shrines. Let the people visit.
Right.
I've never ever got to a valid conclusion from anybody that they said this is guaranteed. I've heard people lean to one side or the other. It depends on where they like to go, probably.
Yeah.
But to have a conclusive argument, we don't. Hello, you might ask, why didn't the people ask the imams? I don't know why the people didn't ask this. Or they may have asked and it might have went through history. I don't know. Because don't forget, it was limited to the things that people were able to ask and talk about.
Because not all of the imams had the kind of freedom to be able to talk
No
openly.
one really had that full freedom. And don't forget, not only that, imagine also with this limited freedom and all the books we have, do you know how many times our books have been destroyed?
Yeah.
Over the eras, every single person that's come in, every hero from the others, they always say this guy was a hero. He was a hero because he slaughtered Shia.
Yeah.
That's how they get that heroic type. If you look at, for example, some of the extremists in the world, especially like if you look in Palestine, you've got a lot of extremists there that celebrate, that mourn Saddam and they talk about Saddam highly. Why? Because he slaughtered the Shia. That's talking about the extremist groups.
Right.
There.
Yeah.
So you got extremist groups. That's the main thing that they like.
Yeah.
Whoever kills Shia, they say he's good, and they'll support them. Even if you notice now, like they're in bed with Israel, as you can see, because they're killing the Shia. Anything got to do against the Shia, that they stand on this side. So that's why we're always losing a lot of the
history and the
because of
knowledge.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, Ahsan Sheikh. Thank you very much, brother, for the question. If there's any other questions or any other comments, please let us know, and we'll bring the mic around for you. No? Okay, thank you. To the sister behind you, that's all right. Brothers, while you might be thinking of a question and whatnot, Sheikh, can we talk about Sayeda Zainab as a role model for women and for mothers, especially? Because we hear sometimes, you work in the community very much so. You hear from some of the ladies in the community, some of the mothers, some of the sisters, the daughters, that culturally or in their households or whatever the factor might be, they're made to feel as though their lives or their contribution to the family or to society is not worth as much as, say, their father, their brother, their husband. What can we learn from Sayeda Zainab in respect of that?
This is one of the biggest dilemmas we have when it comes to work. People respect people on how much they earn, rather on what they do. So, if I'm a professional gamer, and I'm making $200,000-300,000 a year, some of them are making in the millions.
Yeah, they're making
now.
good money. Yeah.
As professional gamers, what do they contribute to humanity? Imagine someone says, "Oh, my son's a professional sportsman." What do they contribute to humanity? What have they benefited humanity? How does Lionel Messi benefit you? In what way? Tell me. It's like, do you remember that female scientist in I think it was in Spain, where at the beginning when they're doing the research for COVID, and she said, "Start paying us like professional footballers," and then expect tomorrow.
Then you'll see the miracles happen. Yeah.
You see the miracles we do. Now, here's the problem: the mother's job is so grand that Allah Azza wa Jal, through His Prophet, says, "Al-Jannatu tahta aqdam al-ummahat." Why would He say paradise is beneath the mother's feet? Why the mother? Why not the father? Why would the Prophet say your mother, then your father? Why? When the mother is one of those thankless jobs. She does everything. No one says thank you. Everyone thinks things magically happen. I wake up, the next day I come in, my bed's made.
Clothes are clean.
Yeah, clothes are clean.
Dinner's ready.
Dinner's ready, it's all magic. And the problem as well is women started looking at the role of a mother negatively.
Yeah.
They see it as you're just like, are you just they
A
started
homemaker, yeah.
homemaker, as they
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll look at it, and they even there's a movement that started in Britain where they call it trad wife, traditional wife.
Oh, trad wife, right.
And what the trad wife was
Yep.
a woman that does all this stuff, and all the feminazi movements have gone against them.
Yeah.
And they insult them. They say you're bringing women down, and these same movements never talk anything against any of the clubs and exploitation of women. That's not an issue.
Yeah.
But this is an issue.
Yeah.
The thing is, when we talk about the mother is such an important role, because with a good mother you see good children. When you see a good child, know that it was a mother behind them that raised them.
Yep.
These people that go and perform all these important tasks in life, you know that there was a mother that raised them in this manner, that brought them, and we're talking about generally,
Yeah,
some of the people,
and fought for that
some of the
opportunity.
people, they're miracles of life.
Absolutely.
You know, they came out good,
Yeah.
and they did, but we're talking about generally,
Yeah.
it's a good mother.
Yeah.
A good mother that worked hard on the child, raised the child, loved the child, reared the child properly, nurtured the child. And that role of the mother. Now, Sayeda Zainab alayhi salam raised Honor Muhammad.
Yeah.
And not only that, Sayeda Zainab alayhi salam raised Abbas, Abdullah, Ja'far and Uthman. She raised these boys. They were hers. She raised them in the family. They were around her. At the same token, she educated the women in their religious duties and that. And then at the time where she had to show her voice and let the people hear what took place, she was there and she was vocal. She took this role, but as a mother, she raised the correct family. As Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam was the same. And we talk about these. It's not we don't neglect these points, but the problem is society. Look, does it pay? No. It's worth nothing.
It's worthless, yeah.
So if you're doing a job where you're assisting people, people look at it as, all right, if someone does, for example, if you work for St. John's Ambulance or SES or in the United Kingdom, they got volunteer police, like that. Yeah, they got these hire cops where they just get, and they're for free. They work for free. Because there's no guns, obviously, in Britain with the cops.
Yeah.
They just wear the police uniform and they come in and they do these services, and people don't look at it as an employment. It is an employment, even though you're not getting paid. Like the SES do so much during whenever we have a storm, we have all these fires. They're there.
Yeah.
They're doing it just because they're not getting paid. It doesn't mean they're not performing a job. The mother is so essential because a society is raised by a mother. But the problem now that because people are being turned away from this and everyone's working, people aren't raising their children anymore.
Yeah.
And when you mention it, people, some of them think that you're being backwards or you can't get ahead. Listen, if you're going to get ahead, you will get ahead. You'll get forward in life. And if you're not going to, if you have 10 jobs, you're not going to go ahead into life. Okay? So, and what's getting ahead? What's moving forward? Progressive, what's progress? Me having 3-4 properties, me having a portfolio.
Well, today,
me
Sheikh,
having
if you're going to have one property, you progress.
No, me having a shipping, being a shipping magnate.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
What is it that makes me, what's it called, successful and progress in life? It's raising the right family, having good children, that when people see, sometimes you see someone doing a burnout. A car is passing by late at night, you hear a car doing a burnout. And I sometimes when I hear it, I laugh. And I laugh to myself, I go, imagine how many people swore to this person's parents at this moment. How many people cursed his parents at this moment? Okay? Why? Because when someone does something good, we always say, Rahmallah waldik. May Allah have mercy on your parents.
Yeah.
May Allah bless the womb that carried you. They say this to you. Rahamallah al-batan. They say al-hamalat. The womb that carried you, may Allah bless it. Why would they say this? Because they know that this one that carried him. You look at all the ulama, they always talk about how their mothers raised them.
Yeah.
They mention this.
Yeah.
It's essential. So this mother's role is a big role. You know what I mean? It's something that's always been pushed aside. Just like any other role, like I mentioned, where you help in the community.
Yeah, Ahsan Sheikh. Thank you very much, Sheikh. Sheikh, I think we're running out of time for this evening. If there are no other comments or questions, inshallah we'll look to wrap it up, and inshallah we'll finish with a majlis for the evening for Sayeda Zainab, salamullah alayh. Thank you everybody for joining us this evening. If you give us a moment, inshallah we will conclude with the majlis. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله وعلى صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة عليك وعلى أختك الحوراء زينب وعلى أمك الطاهرة فاطمة يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما أنسى حسينا بالتفوف مجدلا لا والله لا والله على ظمأ والماء يلمح ظاميا فوالله لا أنسى بنات محمد بقين حيارى قد فقدنا المحاميا ولم أنس حول السبت زينب إذ غدات تنادي بصوت صدع الكون عاليا ماذا كان نداء زينب في كربلاء يا هلال غاب بعد كماله فأضحت به أيام سعيدة يا سعيد الليالي يا أخي لم تذق من بارد الماء شربة وأشرب ماء المذن بعدك صافيا صرت مرمى للحوادث والأسى يا فليتك حيا تنظر يوم السجاد أضحى مقيدا يا أسيرا يعاني موجع الدرب قاسيا على الثرى عزيز علي عزيز عليك أن ترى اليوم ما بنا فحاشاك أن ترضى لنا حوافرنا سبايا بنا الأعداء تطوى الفيافيا عظم الله لكم الأجر. My dear brothers and sisters, tonight we come together for the tragedy of al-Masa'ib, that al-Masa'ib, Sayeda Zainab salamullahi alayha, who witnessed many tragedies. She would first witness the shahada of her mother Fatima. Then she would witness the shahada of her father Ali. Then she would witness Imam al-Hassan and his liver as he vomited it out. Then she would witness the tragedy of tragedies, the massacre of Ahlul Bayt on the 10th of Muharram. This one was the hardest for her. Why was this? because she had no kafil left. She had no protectors, no one to console her, but the flames of the tent was Zainab, was Zainab. What they say there's a narration that after the tents were burned, there was a man who was not with Ahlul Bayt, but he was not with the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. He was just a bystander, and he saw a lady going close to a tent that's being burned, as if she had lost something inside. He would go up to her, saying, "Oh lady, An-nar, An-nar." She would ask, "Who are you? Are you with us or against us?" He would say, "I'm not with you and I'm not against you, but why are you going near the tent?" It is because we have a sick man inside the tent. Brothers and sisters, I want to ask you, is this the job of Sayeda Zainab salamullahi alayha? Where are the men of Sayeda Zainab to help Imam Zain al-Abidin stand? That she had to handle this situation. What about when she stood on the tal, on the hill that they call Tal al-Zainabiyya? She would see her brother Hussein on the floor, on the ground, laying after the massacre of Ahlul Bayt. She would stand, she would say to Hussein, "By the right of Rasulullah, if you can hear me, answer me." There was no reply. She would then say, "By the right of Ali, answer me." There was no answer. "By the right of your mother Fatima, if you can hear me, answer me." There was a reply this time, but what would Abu Abdullah al-Hussein say? "Oh Zainab, you have hurt me more by saying the name of my mother Fatima." It is as if, brothers and sisters, it is as if that when they say the name of Fatima, that she would truly be there in Karbala. You can imagine the situation. Let's put ourselves into the situation, in the shoes of Sayeda Zainab, as she would call to her mother, "Yumma ya, Yumma ya, Yumma, ta'ali. تشوفي كربلاء تسوت بحالي." تقول له يما يا يما، يمك مو بعيدة، أني شفت حسين من حزة ووريدة. يما تعالي الكربلاء، يما تعالي الكربلاء، هذا حسينك بالفلا، جثته يما مرملا، تعالي نحفر لقبره، يما ذبيحه التروب دم من المنحر يثوب صاب السهم وسط القلوب هوى يا يما من المنحر يا يما شحج على الجرى هذا حسينك عالثرى حزوا يا ويلي من حرى وتحنو ذلو الصدر إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون خويا تدري اليسر ما ينحمل دمع يجري على ظهر الهزل ترضى امشي ويا العدا واطلع السبيه وانا يا اخويا العقيله هاشميه خويا تدري اليسر ما ينحمل دمع يجري على ظهر الهزل ترضى امشي ويا العدا واطلع السبيه وانا يا اخويا العقيله هاشميه. Brothers, stand up and please make a circle for some latmiya inshallah.
وای امان وای امان وای امان از دل زینب وای امان وای امان وای امان از دل زینب مکنان مایه کنان قافله ای میرسد از ره گو بغل باز کند کرب و بلا خیل بلا را کاروانی رسد از شام به قربانگه خوبان از گلوهای بریده بشنو بانگ دلارا وای امان وای امان وای امان از دل زینب وای امان وای امان وای امان از دل پرده گوش فلک پاره شد آن دم که شنیدی شیون پردگیان حرم آل عبارا به تسلی نخروشید کسی در غم ایشان غیر ناخن که خراشید رخ آن اسرا را وای امان وای امان وای امان از دل زینب وای امان وای امان همه چون برگ خزانی که فرو ریزد و افتد یک سر از ناقه فتادند مضاع شهدا را به تسلی نخروشید کسی در غم ایشان مادری ریخت سر قبر پسر اشک جگرگون دختری داد سر خاک پدر داد عزارا وای امان وای امان دل زینب وای امان وای امان وای امان از دل. یک طرف داغ جوان بر دل لیلا زده آتش، نجم گریان طرفی موسم فرخان دل غارا. یک طرف بر سر و بر سینه زند مادر اصغر، چون به یاد آورد آن خنجر و آن تیر دوتا را. وای امان وای امان وای امان از دل زینب وای امان وای امان وای امان از دل زینب. کودکی جانب الغم برود تا که بداند، کودکی جانب الغم برود تا که بداند، چه شد آن روز پدر رفت و نیاورد خارا. زینب آینه حیرت به تماشاگه مقتل، شرح هجران بدهد یا ندهد خون خدا را. وای امان وای امان وای امان از دل زینب وای امان وای امان وای امان از. با هزاران غم دل مانده بگوید ز کدامی، قصه شام و یا کوفه و یا کرب و بلا را. از غم ساعت دروازه ساعت بگوید، یا ز ویران و یا بزم یا تشت طلا را. وای امان وای امان وای امان از دل زینب وای امان وای امان.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. For all the مرحومين and مرحومات, specifically Hajj Hali Fayyad Halawiya, Haji Maryam Hijazi, Brother Fadl Rahal, Hajj Fayyad Hamoud, and Ghulam Muhammad Behbahani. If we can recite a Fatiha, but before it aloud, Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.